The news that no one talks about. Welcome to the silent newsroom.
Hunger crisis in Yemen. The humanitarian crisis in Yemen remains dire, with millions facing acute hunger. Despite ongoing efforts by international organizations, the situation has not improved significantly, and the world's attention has largely shifted away from the conflict. The war, which has been raging for years, has devastated the country's infrastructure, leaving many without access to basic necessities like food, clean water, and medical care. Families are struggling to survive, with parents often going without food to ensure their children can eat. Aid workers on the ground are doing their best to distribute food and supplies, but the need far outweighs the available resources. The international community must not forget Yemen. Continued support and increased aid are crucial to prevent further loss of life. The images of malnourished children and war-torn areas should serve as a stark reminder of the urgent need for action. Yemen's future depends on the world's response today. Every effort counts in saving lives.
U.S. water crisis. Several communities in the United States, especially in rural areas, continue to suffer from water contamination and shortages. This issue remains largely overlooked, despite its critical impact on public health. In many places, outdated infrastructure and industrial pollution have exacerbated the problem, leaving residents without access to clean and safe drinking water. Activists and local organizations are tirelessly working to bring attention to this crisis, advocating for better regulations and investment in water infrastructure. The situation is dire, with some communities facing severe health risks due to prolonged exposure to contaminated water. It's crucial for both the government and the public to recognize and address this pressing issue.
Illegal fishing in West Africa. Illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing is causing significant environmental and economic damage in West African waters. This practice is depleting fish stocks and threatening the livelihoods of millions who depend on fishing. The region's rich marine biodiversity is under severe threat, with many species facing the risk of extinction. Local fishermen, who rely on these waters for their daily sustenance, are finding it increasingly difficult to make a living. The economic impact is profound, as the fishing industry is a crucial part of the local economy. Moreover, the environmental damage extends beyond just the fish populations. The entire marine ecosystem is being disrupted, leading to long-term consequences that could take decades to reverse. Efforts to combat illegal fishing are ongoing, but enforcement remains a significant challenge. International cooperation and stronger regulations are essential to protect these waters and ensure a sustainable future for the communities that depend on them.
Human rights abuses in Xinjiang. While there has been some international attention on the treatment of Uyghur Muslims in China, many ongoing human rights abuses in Xinjiang, including forced labor and mass surveillance, remain underreported. The Chinese government has been accused of detaining over 1 million Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities in so-called re-education camps. These camps are reportedly designed to strip individuals of their cultural and religious identities. In addition to forced labor, there are widespread reports of torture, sexual abuse, and forced sterilizations. Surveillance is pervasive, with advanced technology being used to monitor and control the population. Despite international condemnation and calls for action, the situation remains dire. Many countries and organizations have called for sanctions and other measures to pressure China to end these abuses, but significant change has yet to be seen. The plight of the Uyghur people continues to be a critical human rights issue that demands global attention and action.
The fragile peace process in South Sudan is facing numerous challenges, including ongoing violence and political instability. Despite these issues, the international community's focus on the region has waned. Since gaining independence in 2011, South Sudan has been mired in conflict, leading to one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. Millions have been displaced and countless lives have been lost. Efforts to stabilize the region have seen some progress, but the road to lasting peace remains long and arduous. Local leaders and international organizations continue to push for dialogue and reconciliation. Despite the challenges, there are glimmers of hope. Grassroots initiatives and community-driven projects are making a difference, slowly but surely paving the way for a more stable future. The international community must not lose sight of South Sudan. Continued support and attention are crucial to ensure that peace and stability can finally take root in this young nation. Indigenous communities in the Arctic are experiencing severe impacts from climate change, including loss of traditional livelihoods and displacement, but these stories are rarely covered by mainstream media. The melting ice is not just a distant problem, it directly affects the daily lives of these communities. Traditional hunting practices are becoming increasingly difficult as animal populations dwindle. Elders share stories of how the land used to be, while children face an uncertain future. Community meetings are now often centered around how to adapt to these rapid changes. Scientists are working tirelessly to understand the full extent of the impact, and activists are raising their voices, but more attention is needed. Global warming data shows alarming trends that cannot be ignored. International aid and renewable energy projects offer some hope, but the resilience and adaptability of Arctic communities are crucial. Their stories deserve to be heard and acted upon. Large-scale protests have been ongoing in Colombia against government policies and corruption. However, these protests have not received significant international media coverage. The protest began in late April 2021, initially sparked by a proposed tax reform that many Colombians felt would disproportionately affect the middle and lower classes. Despite the government withdrawing the tax proposal, the protests have continued, fueled by broader issues such as economic inequality, police brutality, and lack of opportunities. Human rights organizations have condemned the excessive use of force by police, and there have been calls for international solidarity with the Colombian people. Amidst the turmoil, many Colombians have come together in peaceful demonstrations, showcasing their resilience and cultural pride. Interviews with protesters reveal a deep sense of hope and unity as they continue to fight for a better future for their country.
Deforestation in the Amazon. Despite some international awareness, the scale of deforestation in the Amazon continues to increase, driven by illegal logging, mining, and agriculture. The long-term ecological consequences are profound. The Amazon rainforest, often referred to as the lungs of the earth, plays a crucial role in regulating the global climate. However, the relentless deforestation is not only threatening biodiversity, but also the lives of indigenous communities who call the forest home. Efforts to combat deforestation include stricter enforcement of environmental laws, promoting sustainable land use practices, and supporting reforestation projects. Yet the challenge remains immense, requiring global cooperation and urgent action to protect this vital ecosystem for future generations.
Migrant crisis in the Mediterranean. The situation for migrants attempting to cross the Mediterranean remains dire, with many losing their lives in the attempt. However, the ongoing crisis receives minimal attention in global media. Every year, thousands of people flee conflict, persecution, and poverty, hoping to find safety and a better life in Europe. The journey is perilous, with overcrowded and unseaworthy vessels often leading to tragic outcomes. Despite the efforts of various humanitarian organizations, the resources are insufficient to address the scale of the crisis. Many migrants end up in makeshift camps, facing harsh conditions and uncertain futures. The international community has been slow to respond effectively, with political debates often overshadowing the urgent need for humanitarian aid and comprehensive policy solutions. Protests and advocacy groups continue to push for more action. Amidst the challenges, there are stories of hope and resilience. Many migrants, once given the chance, contribute positively to their new communities, proving that with the right support, integration is possible and beneficial for all. Political repression in Belarus. The Belarusian government continues to crack down on dissent and opposition, with activists and journalists facing persecution. This repression, however, has largely faded from the headlines. President Alexander Lukashenko's regime has been accused of rigging elections and silencing critics. Despite international condemnation, the government remains steadfast in its oppressive tactics. Many activists have been forced into exile, while the European Union and other international bodies have imposed sanctions in response to the human rights abuses. Despite these efforts, the situation remains dire, with ongoing protests and a resilient citizenry continuing to demand change. Solidarity movements around the world have shown support for the Belarusian people. The struggle for freedom and democracy in Belarus is a testament to the resilience of its people. It is crucial to keep this issue in the global spotlight and support those fighting for their rights. Stay informed and engaged. Like, subscribe and share for more updates.